Mist drifts over emerald mountains, golden temples rise above river valleys, and floating gardens stretch across lakes like living mosaics. This is Myanmar, a country of breathtaking landscapes and cultures as diverse as its horizons. Here, women wear tattoos like living manuscripts. Warriors once known for headhunting now celebrate peace through festivals. Fishermen balance on single legs atop narrow boats, their movements unfolding like prayers on sacred waters. In remote villages, shamans speak with spirits of ancient trees. On floating gardens, farmers grow crops on water itself. And across this golden land, temple bells echo beside longhouse drums, weaving Buddhism and animism into a single rhythm of survival. Most think they know Southeast Asia. They don't know Myanmar. This brings us to our first tribe. Chin. High in the mist-shrouded mountains of western Myanmar, where peaks scrape clouds and valleys plunge into shadow, the Chin people carry their history written in the sacred geography of their faces. Here, among villages that cling to mountainsides like prayers carved in stone, the art of facial tattooing once transformed young women into living manuscripts of beauty, identity, and spiritual protection. The spiderweb patterns, the intricate geometric designs, the dots and lines that flow across cheeks and chins. Each marking told stories of clan identity, marital status, and protection from evil spirits. Chin elders, their faces bearing these sacred texts, move through mountain villages like walking libraries of a tradition that colonial powers once tried to erase, but which survived in the resilience of women who refused to let their stories be forgotten. In the Chin Hills, where bamboo houses perch on slopes so steep they seem to defy gravity, life unfolds at the rhythm of mountain seasons. Terraced fields cascade down hillsides in impossible engineering, each level carved by generations who understood that working with the mountain's contours yields more than fighting them. Mithun, the sacred cattle, graze on slopes where their bells ring like temple chimes through morning mist. The Chin understanding of wealth defies modern economics. Prosperity is measured not in currency, but in community cooperation, in the number of Mithun a family owns, in the elaborate festivals where entire villages gather to share food, stories, and the complex social bonds that turn individual survival into collective celebration. But the modern world climbs these ancient paths with the persistence of monsoon rain. Missionaries arrived promising salvation that required abandoning ancestor worship. Government programs promote development that demands integration into systems the Chin never chose. The young migrate towards cities where unmarked faces move easier through doors of opportunity, leaving behind elders whose tattooed stories may die with them. Yet in the cool mountain dawn, when clouds part to reveal valleys that stretch toward horizons unmarked by roads or power lines, the Chin still gather for festivals that honor ancestors, still perform dances that recreate the movements of sacred animals, still maintain the delicate balance between honoring tradition and adapting to change. For they know that some stories are too precious to modernize, too sacred to abandon, too beautiful to let fade into the uniform gray of global conformity. Kachin. Where Myanmar's northern mountains rise toward the peaks that birth the great Irrawaddy River, the Kachin people have built their civilization on jade, tradition, and the sacred art of transformation. In valleys where amber catches ancient sunlight and emerald mines delve deep into Earth's hidden treasures, they have learned that true wealth lies not in extraction, but in the ceremonies that honor both the spirits of the earth and the communities that depend on its generosity. The Manao Festival transforms Kachin villages into theaters of sacred celebration, where elaborate poles, carved with mythical designs, reach toward heaven, like prayers made visible. Dancers in traditional dress move in patterns that recreate creation stories, their movements synchronized with drum beats that have echoed through these valleys for centuries. Each dance is both entertainment and education, teaching young Kachin the stories that bind them to land, ancestors, and each other. In longhouses, where entire extended families share space and stories, Kachin elders pass down knowledge that no university teaches, which herbs heal, which ailments, which ceremonies ensure successful harvests, which negotiations maintain peace between villages that might otherwise compete for resources. Their oral traditions preserve not just entertainment, but survival wisdom refined through generations of mountain living. The Kachin relationship with jade goes beyond commerce. It is spiritual, ceremonial, central to understanding how human communities can extract Earth's treasures without extracting the soul from the process. Traditional mining methods honor the spirits that dwell in stone, seeking permission before taking, offering gratitude after receiving, maintaining the reciprocal relationships that sustain both people and place. But modern extraction industries operate by different rules. Large-scale jade mining brings environmental destruction and social disruption. Armed conflicts over resource control have displaced communities, turning traditional lands into battlegrounds. Many young Kachin find themselves caught between loyalty to ancestral ways and the economic necessities of contemporary survival. Still, when morning mist rises from mountain valleys and the first light catches jade stones in their original matrix, Kachin ceremonies continue. Still, the Manao poles point toward heaven. Still, communities gather to honor traditions that understand wealth as relationship between human and earth, between individual and community, between the generations that came before and those yet to be born. Shan. Across the plateau that bears their name, where mountain ranges roll toward distant horizons and valleys shimmer with rice fields that mirror passing clouds, the Shan people have created kingdoms of grace. Their temples rise like lotus blossoms from emerald landscapes, their markets overflow with silks and spices, and their festivals transform ordinary time into celebrations that honor both earthly beauty and celestial harmony. The Shan states once commanded trade routes that stretched from China to India, their cities growing prosperous on the flow of tea, jade, and precious goods that moved through mountain passes like rivers of commerce. Shan merchants, their convoys stretching for miles through mountain terrain, carried not just products, but cultures, languages, and ideas that enriched every market they touched. In workshops where master craftsmen still practice arts passed down through generations, Shan artisans create umbrellas of paper and bamboo so delicate they seem like captured butterflies, each one painted with designs that tell stories of Buddhist teachings, natural beauty, and the aesthetic principles that turn functional objects into works of meditation. Their textiles shimmer with threads that catch light like captured starshine, each pattern carrying meaning deeper than decoration. The Shan Buddhist festivals unfold with pageantry that transforms entire communities into theaters of devotion. During Tungi's balloon festival, paper lanterns the size of houses rise towards stars, carrying prayers and wishes into the night sky. The balloons, some carrying fireworks that explode in celestial celebration, represent the Shan understanding that beauty and devotion can lift human aspiration toward divine realms. But political conflicts have scarred the Shan Plateau like wounds that refuse to heal. Decades of armed struggle over autonomy have displaced communities, disrupted traditional life, and created refugee populations who carry Shan culture into exile. Karen. In the forests and hills where Myanmar meets Thailand, where ancient teak trees rise like pillars in cathedrals of green shadow, the Karen people have written their story in woven cloth, elephant partnerships, and the patient art of forest guardianship. Their villages nestle in landscapes they have protected for generations, understanding that human prosperity and forest health are not competing interests but complementary aspects of a single sacred ecology. The Karen loom is an instrument of prayer as much as production, transforming cotton and silk into textiles that carry the compressed wisdom of generations. Each pattern in traditional Karen cloth tells stories of creation myths, of seasonal cycles, of the relationships between human communities and the forest spirits that guide and protect them. Women weave while children play nearby, the rhythm of the loom, providing soundtrack for lessons in patience, beauty, and the transformation of simple materials into objects of lasting meaning. For centuries, the Karen lived in partnership with elephants, the massive creatures serving not as beasts of burden, but as collaborators in forest work. Karen mahouts developed relationships with individual elephants that lasted lifetimes, understanding each animal's personality, preferences, and capabilities. Together, they moved through forests with a gentleness that allowed both human work and ecological preservation, demonstrating that productivity and environmental protection could enhance rather than conflict with each other. Karen traditional governance operates through systems of consensus and consultation that put community welfare above individual ambition. Elders guide decisions not through authority imposed, but through wisdom offered, creating social structures that bend without breaking, that adapt without abandoning the core values that have sustained Karen communities through centuries of external pressure. But those pressures have intensified into crisis. Logging companies clear forests the Karen have protected for generations. Armed conflicts displace entire villages, creating refugee populations that carry Karen culture across borders into uncertain futures. Development projects flood traditional territories, forcing communities to choose between ancestral lands and physical survival. Yet in forest clearings, where sunlight filters through canopies that still tower towards sky, Karen communities continue their patient work of conservation and cultivation. Pow. In the hills around Inle Lake, where morning mist rises from waters that mirror the sky, the Pa'o people move through landscapes of impossible beauty with the quiet dignity of those who understand that true wealth lies not in possession, but in belonging. Their dark traditional dress, worn even in markets and modern towns, marks them as keepers of traditions that value continuity over novelty, depth over display, the accumulated wisdom of generations over the quick fixes of contemporary convenience. Pa'o villages dot hillsides like beads on prayer strings, each one positioned to catch morning light and afternoon shade with the precision that comes from centuries of understanding how human habitation can enhance rather than diminish natural beauty. Their houses, built with materials drawn from surrounding forests, seem to grow from the earth itself, demonstrating architecture that serves human needs without declaring war on the landscapes that sustain them. The Pa'o relationship with tea goes beyond agriculture into ceremony, meditation, and the patient arts of transformation. In gardens that climb mountain slopes in terraced precision, tea plants grow under canopies that filter light and regulate temperature with the sophistication of any climate control system. Pa'o tea masters understand fermentation, oxidation, and the dozens of variables that transform simple leaves into beverages capable of inducing contemplation, conversation, and the subtle alterations of consciousness that accompany any genuine ritual practice. Pa'o festivals blend Buddhist celebration with older traditions that honor mountain spirits, creating ceremonies where temple bells ring alongside traditional instruments, where monks' chants harmonize with folk songs that carry stories older than written records. Their ritual calendar follows both lunar cycles and agricultural seasons, integrating spiritual observance with practical wisdom about when to plant, when to harvest, when to rest, and when to celebrate. But modernity arrives in Pa'o territory wearing the masks of progress and development. Roads cut through traditional pilgrimage routes, hotels rise where sacred groves once grew. Tourism transforms ritual into spectacle, turning authentic cultural expression into performance designed for outside consumption rather than community participation. Lahu. High in the mountains where Myanmar, Laos, and China meet, where borders drawn by distant governments mean less than watershed boundaries and migration routes older than nations. The Lahu people follow paths written in starlight, seasonal change, and the ancient knowledge of how to read the mountain's moods. They are the hunters, the gatherers, the people whose survival skills have been refined through generations of moving with, rather than against, the rhythms that govern highland ecology. Lahu villages appear and disappear with the regularity of seasons, their residents following agricultural cycles that require movement, flexibility, and the deep understanding of how different elevations, soil types, and forest conditions support different phases of cultivation. What outsiders might call nomadism, the Lahu understand as intelligent adaptation, the wisdom of working with natural systems rather than trying to force them into artificial permanence. Their hunting traditions combine practical skill with spiritual practice, understanding that taking life requires ceremony, gratitude, and the maintenance of relationships with forest spirits that oversee the balance between human needs and ecological health. Lahu hunters move through forests like shadows, their knowledge of animal behavior, plant medicine, and weather patterns refined to levels that seem almost supernatural to those accustomed to urban living. Mon. In the deltas and coastal plains where rivers meet the sea, the Mon people carry the memory of kingdoms that once controlled the trade routes between India and China. Their cities rose from mudflats, their ships carried culture across the Bay of Bengal, and their influence helped shape Theravada Buddhism throughout Southeast Asia. The Mon script flows like water across stone inscriptions, each character preserving both sound and spirit. Mon scholars safeguarded Buddhist texts through centuries of turmoil, ensuring that philosophy, literature, and spiritual practice survived when other traditions were lost. In workshops, artisans still practice crafts born in royal courts. Lacquerware glows like captured sunset, while textiles shimmer with patterns that tell stories of trade, ceremony, and devotion. These objects, both functional and sacred, transform daily life into meditation. Their agriculture, too, shows mastery. Knowledge of water management, soil care, and crop rotation sustained dense populations in fragile delta lands, proving prosperity can thrive without destroying the ecosystems that support it. Yet Mon lands have long been contested, invaded, colonized, and disrupted by shifting politics. Communities have often been forced to rebuild language, traditions, and institutions from fragments preserved by elders. Still, in temple courtyards where ancient inscriptions endure, Mon communities continue their patient work. Artisans shape beauty from humble materials, farmers sustain balance with the land, and scholars keep memory alive. For the Mon know that some traditions are too precious to lose, and some beauties too vital to let fade into silence. Naga. In the mountains where Myanmar meets India, the Naga people have long transformed the arts of warfare into celebrations of community, spirit, and identity. Their ridgetop villages stand like fortresses, their festivals burst with color, and their governance rests on honor, consensus, and the wisdom of elders. Once known for headhunting, the practice has shifted into symbolic ceremony. Rituals that once prepared warriors now prepare youth for the responsibilities of adulthood, preserving the spiritual lessons of courage, discipline, and service to community without the violence of the past. Naga textiles, woven on looms that echo like heartbeat and drum, serve as living records of clan history, military triumphs, and ancestral memory. Women weave while conversations weave too, stories, decisions, and collective wisdom passed across generations. Village architecture reflects both practicality and resilience. Longhouses shelter extended families, granaries safeguard food and wealth, and meeting halls provide the space for debate until consensus emerges. Here, survival is built on cooperation as much as defense. But isolation now threatens what warfare once protected. Many young Nagas leave for cities where traditional skills and values seem outdated. Missionary schools bring education and healthcare, but often ask that older practices be set aside, leaving questions of identity unresolved. Still, when mist parts over ridgelines, Naga villages continue their quiet work. Looms hum with ancestral stories, festivals turn conflict into celebration, and communities preserve the knowledge that unity is stronger than division. For the Naga know that some traditions hold truths too profound to forget, and some forms of community are too vital to surrender. Wa. In the mountains where Myanmar meets China, the Wa people have long balanced tradition with survival, sustaining communities in a land shaped by trade routes, shifting powers, and cultural exchange. Their villages show how small societies preserve autonomy while still engaging with wider worlds. Agriculture is both practical and spiritual. Terraced fields climb steep slopes, engineered with precision that rivals modern projects, while farming itself is seen as participation in cosmic cycles linking human labor to nature, seasons, and community well-being. Leadership rests not on power, but on wisdom. Elders guide through consultation and consensus, creating systems of governance that adapt to change without losing the values that hold villages together. Festivals bring ritual and social life into one. Moments for resolving disputes, arranging marriages, honoring ancestors, and celebrating harvests. Through ceremony, daily concerns merge with spiritual understanding, reinforcing bonds of reciprocity and trust. But Wa-lands lie in contested territory, caught between drug trade, resource extraction, and political struggles. Promises of development often threaten the very ecological and cultural foundations that sustain their way of life. Still, in morning clearings where mountains stretch untouched by industry, Wa communities continue their quiet work. Fields are tended, disputes settled, rituals observed. For the Wa know that some forms of community are too vital to abandon, and some wisdom too deeply earned to trade for uncertain visions of progress. Palang. In the misty highlands, where tea gardens climb mountain slopes, the Palang people have built a civilization rooted in cultivation, ceremony, and the quiet art of turning leaves into spirit and sustenance. Their villages dot the ridges like meditation retreats, each shaped by soil, water, and the tea that has defined their identity for centuries. Palang tea masters work with the precision of chemists and the intuition of artists. From delicate green teas that taste of spring mornings to robust black teas that warm cold winters, their craft blends science with spirituality, transforming drinking into meditation. Tea is more than livelihood. It structures social life. Communities join in harvests, honor tea spirits with ceremonies, and celebrate successful seasons through shared food, stories, and festivals that reinforce bonds of cooperation. Their Buddhism weaves Theravada teachings with older traditions that honor mountain spirits and plant deities. Monks guide communities not only in faith, but in education and healing, ensuring that spiritual life strengthens daily survival. Yet global pressures weigh heavily. Industrial plantations and synthetic substitutes undercut the value of Palang craftsmanship, while many young people leave for cities where traditional skills seem obsolete. Still, in the cool before dawn, mist rises from tea gardens as masters begin their work. Still, villagers gather to honor spirits and share tea. Still, ancient knowledge guides the transformation of leaves into contemplation and connection. For the Palang, know that some arts cannot be mechanized, and some relationships with nature are too sacred to abandon. Akha. High in the mountains, where Myanmar, China, and Laos converge, the Akha people sustain traditions shaped by migration, spiritual practice, and agricultural wisdom. Their ridgetop villages rise like prayers in wood and bamboo, embodying a balance between human community and mountain spirits. Akha women's dress turns the body into living art, headdresses glittering with silver ornaments that mark clan identity, personal milestones, and ancestral stories. Each piece carries meaning deeper than decoration, preserving memory, guidance, and beauty in daily life. Their agriculture shows mastery of mountain ecology. Terraced fields climb steep slopes, preventing erosion while sustaining rice, vegetables, and medicinal plants. This knowledge ensures both survival and harmony with fragile highland ecosystems. Spiritual life blends ancestor worship with reverence for mountain spirits. Rituals tied to lunar cycles and agricultural seasons maintain balance between visible work and invisible forces of prosperity and health. Yet the mountains face mounting pressures. Logging strips forests, mining pollutes rivers, and modern policies disrupt traditional ways. Many youths leave for cities, seeking opportunities that village life cannot provide. Still, at dawn, when mist lifts from peaks untouched by industry, Akha women weave silver into headdresses. Farmers tend terraced slopes, and ceremonies honor ancestors who remain guardians of the land. For the Akha, traditions hold knowledge too hard-earned to lose. and community bonds too valuable to surrender to uncertain promises of progress. Intha. On the sacred waters of Inle Lake, where mist rises like incense and temple spires reflect on glassy surfaces, the Intha people have built a way of life that floats between earth and heaven. Their culture shows how humans can prosper while nurturing the natural systems that sustain them. Intha leg rowing turns fishing into performance art. Fishermen balancing on one leg atop narrow boats, using the other to control oars with precision. This unique technique leaves hands free to cast nets or tend floating gardens, each movement reflecting years of practice and deep knowledge of the water. Those floating gardens embody agricultural genius. Mats of lake weeds, anchored with bamboo, rise and fall with the water, yielding tomatoes, beans, and flowers. Here, traditional wisdom achieves what industrial agriculture often struggles to match. Intha artisans also weave lotus fibers into cloth, so rare it rivals precious metals, transforming stems into threads fine as moonlight. These fabrics embody patience, skill, and reverence for nature's gifts. If these mountains and waters felt sacred even through a screen, then help us carry them forward. Like the video. Share it with those who've never heard these names. Comment with the people and places you want remembered. And subscribe, because these stories are far from over. The mountains are still speaking. The rivers still carry memory, and together we can make sure someone is listening.